Casting with Ceri Jones.
Hi guys, and welcome to this week's podcast. Well, the season is coming to an end slowly, isn't it? But the fishing I find has picked up. And I had a great day this week, which again, I will put a future podcast up, because it was an exceptional day's fishing in tough conditions. But on to this week's episode. This week's guest joins me for a second time. I chatted with him first about 18 months ago, and he was so popular, I thought I'd got to get this guy back on. He has a passion for big trout. Talks of his love of Iceland, where he has visited 6 times in the last few years, fishing for browns and huge sea trout to over 20 pound. It's fair to say he's probably known best for his articulated streamer patterns. But actually he talks of his success this year, taking most of his better fish on dries. He also goes on to talk about his photography and a funny story where a family of swans ruined his chances of catching his dream fish. Welcome to my chat with Keith McDonnell. Well, thanks for joining me, Keith. It's been some time since we spoke last.
Good to talk to you again. And I'm sorry we didn't get to link up and go fishing. We did try, but it was just...
That's right. We did plan the pencil in Kylemore last month. And the storm called it off, didn't it? Yeah,
it was rough, but we'll get it done because it is good fun, and they'll take a streamer, you know, and it's a nice day out, nice loch to fish.
Do you know what? I've passed it so many times, but I've never cast a line on it.
Yeah,
I'll have to make an effort next year.
Been very good to me. I've had no giants from it, but there's certainly double figure fish.
Do you think?
Double figure brown trout in it. Oh yeah. TC, who I run the impact thing with, he got one. I was into double figures, maybe 12, 13 pounds, something like that. And I've got them between 5, 6, 7 pounds. So
I think I remember you mentioning, we touched on it in the episode, the podcast we did when we spoke last, about the technique of fishing up a boat with them.
That's right. Yeah, we did. We had a chat about that the last time. Yeah. But we'll have to go out next time you're over.
Yeah, that actual day we were planning to do, to go out. It wasn't actually as bad as what the forecast was after, because I went out for the evening on the Corrib that night, and we had a great evening. But
good stuff.
Yeah, it's the same. You know, I went fishing yesterday actually, and the forecast was horrific. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys came down. He came down from Leicester actually for the day, and we said, "Oh, we'll do it anyway," because forecasts, you can't rely on the forecasts. But as it happened, it was bang on. In fact, it was worse. Yeah. It was really bad. But we had a great day, to be honest. Because dirty days sometimes are the days are more successful than the nice days, aren't they?
I agree with you. Dirty days are my favourite. You know, they can be absolutely magic. Just, you know, days when the fish are really on and aggressive. But yeah, you're right. You can't rely on the forecast. I mean, I've been rubbing my hands here the last 2 days because the forecast has been for a load of rain. I mean, we've had a serious lack of rain in Ireland this summer, and I was hoping just to round off the season. You know, I'm watching a couple of rivers, but it looks like we haven't got the expected rainfall at all.
So how was your season been then?
If I look back on it, it was quite good, but it was tough, you know, because of the weather. Like, you know, everybody's saying a similar sort of thing. We've had a lot of north and northeasterly airflows through the season that just haven't gone away. So it's been tricky. Like I started out in March and April, and I had some good streamer fishing. And no huge fish, but nice, respectable fish. And then, well, May, I wrote a piece about some dry fly fishing for big trout. And that was kind of a real roller coaster. So well, I mean, you're expecting the lovely short sleeve evenings, and we didn't really get them, but we got small windows of it, but I was driving a good distance to get to this river, and after bigger trout on the spent on the dry fly. And well, I managed to, I suppose it was 7 or 8 days on the trot. I had my missus driven mad because I was just, all into this thing to try and get the really big one. And eventually I came upon him and hooked him, and he came off. So I stood, like the kind of fishing it is where you're doing a lot of kind of walking and hanging around and just waiting for things to come right, for the wind to drop, the spent to go out, and the fish to move. And there was a load of swans hanging around me. And, when you're standing there for a couple of hours waiting for things to happen, the swans were driving me insane.
Yeah. So where was this?
Well, it's
on the river.
On the river, yeah. It's a river. Just put a lot of time into it with my pal Kieran, kind of narrowing it down, and I've found some really good fish. But it's one thing to find them; the rest of the stuff has to line up too. But anyway, so. Yeah, the swans are driving me crazy. And then things came right, and I hooked this big fish, and I lost him fairly quickly. I was gutted. And so I hung around there for a couple of evenings afterwards, just waiting for him to come back. Yeah. And eventually he started feeding, and, the way you get really excited. And I fluffed the first cast, and because I was so close to him, I was stuck. I was stuck in the grass on the bank, so I had to pull that out, leave the fly there, retie, right? And he was going absolutely, what I say, bickies. He was really taking a lot of fly. Got the fly tied on with shaky hands, etc., and was just about to cast. And 6 swans landed right on top of the fish and started fighting. So that was that. That was the end of that. But anyway, I managed a few nice fish, kind of 4 pounds, 5.5 pounds, that sort of thing. But that one would have been off the charts.
Really?
I'm not sure exactly what he weighed, but yeah, he was a really big fish.
Like a 4-pound fish in the river is a trophy fish, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
yeah.
For you to say quite casually, you had them 4, 5s, and I thought, Jesus, it must have been something special for you to think it was.
Yeah, you can get a good few 5-pounders in a season, and you get a couple of 6s. Getting up above 7 pounds is tough, but. So look, that was May, and then in June I actually got a PB on the dry fly, and that was 7.75 pounds. Again on the spent, and it was kind of unusual in that it was low water during the day, the northerly airflow, and in a place where you wouldn't normally see a big fall of spent, especially not during the day like that in June. So that was absolutely brilliant, so that was a season maker.
A fish like that is enough for the whole season then, I suppose. But it's like my experience this year, when you were mentioning the spent, I spent some time in Sheelin, beginning of...
Yeah.
When would it be? The end of May. Wow. I tell you, I was jaw-dropping. I've heard people say about the spent there, you know, but it was like something biblical. Never seen anything like it. Do you get a big hatch like that on a river?
Yeah, a couple of rivers you do get phenomenal hatches, but like this particular place, the mayfly hatch wouldn't have been as dense as it previously was, and I guess maybe just the way you get that feeling when conditions are absolutely spot on and they come out and fall. There was just still a kind of a little nip in the air or whatever, just that it wasn't absolutely spot on, but look, it still worked out.
When I look at your social media, most of these big fish, I automatically thought a lot of them come to your articulated streamers, the lures, but you do have quite a few fish on a dry then.
Yeah, I love my dry fly fishing, and like most of the good fish that I got this year were on the dry fly because you need fresh water, particularly with our rivers, the way they're drained. You need to have a push of water and you need a little bit of color in them in order to have the deception. It's like that. You just want to give that fish a glimpse of the streamer, just a quick flash of it so that he makes the decision to pounce. And you can do it too in faster water or white water at the head of the pool. But as I say, with our drained rivers, those spots are few and far between. So
you don't want to give them too much
conditions,
time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. With the conditions we've had, there's been a lot more dry fly fishing. But I love dry fly fishing, and the way I approach it is just, I suppose it's walking and stalking. You just keep walking and like choose the conditions carefully so that you're in with a shout. I mean, if it's a breezy, cool evening, obviously, or afternoon, it's I'm probably not going to bother. But even at that, like if you go walking, you might only make a couple of casts in the time.
Tell me, these pictures which I've seen of you with these magnificent trout, then you say, are you there by yourself most of the time when you fish, or there's somebody with you? Because it makes me think, like, how'd you get that picture? Are you one of these guys that takes a little tripod with you?
No, I do take a good camera. I have a Sony mirrorless camera with a decent lens on it.
Yeah.
And most often what I do is I carry a big McLean sea trout net. Now, it's not the perfect net by any stretch, but it's kind of necessary for the places. So you keep the fish in the net, and I have a backpack. I sit the camera up on the backpack, and the camera connects to the phone automatically when you switch into a Sony app on the phone.
Right.
So I'd have the phone beside me and put a 3-second timer on it. And once you click it's like a remote on the phone. It rattles, it gives me a couple of seconds to lift the fish, rattle off a couple of shots, and put them back in the water, and that works out quite well.
Yeah.
It's nailing the focus, because with the pictures of the trout, obviously what works best is getting the focus really well on the eye of the fish.
Yeah.
And to do that with, I'd use f1.4 to do with that, and nail the focus with such a shallow depth of field.
Sometimes
it takes a bit of...
Yeah, sometimes when you do that, though, there's a danger of you going out of shot then, out of focus. But you don't mind that because the focus is the trout, I guess.
The focus is the trout. I kind of like that I'm blurred in the background, and that the fish is pin sharp, or that's the aim. Some it's hard to get it right, and obviously putting the fish back in good shape is important to me, so I don't mess about. So hence the big net, and being able to just put them back in the net.
Yeah.
And keep them in the water. So, yeah. That's what I do. And then I have a pal, Kieran, who I fish a lot with, and he's mad into photography as well. So if he's around, it's a lucky one, so he'll get a good shot.
Do you know what? I used to take a tripod with me and my bag. Oh, Jesus. You're walking around the lake and with your normal fishing gear, and in the end, I've slimmed right down now. And sometimes I might get even lazy and just have my phone and a little tripod, a folding one that goes in my pocket. And fun enough, I was chatting with somebody else who does some great photography as well, is James Barry. I don't know if you're familiar with James.
He does, yeah, I do, yeah.
And he was telling me, because he had, if I remember right, the same Samsung as I have. I think he had. And with mine, you can set the phone up, and it's all you got to do is say, shoot.
Yeah.
And he takes a picture. And he said he was there one day, and he had this lovely salmon, sort of 10, 12 pound. And then he was going, shoot. He was so, and there was somebody walking past in the background, and it's all they can see is him saying, shoot.
It's gas. I've got a Samsung phone, and you can actually shoot raw files with it, but I still prefer I like to carry the good camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, when I come home from fishing, like, I'm straight plugging the camera into the computer and opening Lightroom, because I absolutely love just the post-processing part of it, of just playing with the photographs, because you can just do such lovely things, I just really, really enjoy it. I wouldn't say as much as the fishing, but it's a big part of it.
The fishing day, I find, I was talking to David Guest, actually, the guy who was fishing with yesterday, who was in the journal with me, and he took his camera out, and for a change, he was taking pictures instead of me yesterday. But what I was going to say is, we were talking about this, and I said, it's almost like when you come home from fishing, it isn't over, because it's nice to sit down in the computer then and play around with it for maybe an hour or two, and it's like you're reliving the day again, and it's nice being creative and putting something on social media then, or your blog, and
100%,
it extends the day then and the memories.
It does, yeah. And it's amazing, like, how fly fishing appeals to creative people, so you often find like they're into all these creative things on top of just the fly fishing. It's a lovely thing.
I find, especially in the West, I find the light is amazing, right? A number of times I'm fishing, and it could be drifting, and I'm looking behind me, and you see these shafts of light coming through the clouds over the gorse, and you might have some Connemara pony on the side, and I'm thinking, shall I put the rod down and get the camera out? And you're torn sometimes which to do, but more often than not now, I just go straight for the camera, because those opportunities don't come around very often. You can't recreate them.
I've seen your pictures with the shafts of light on Corrib. They're stunning. Yeah, really.
Thanks. It happens so often, doesn't it? You've probably seen it yourself.
Yeah.
I suppose because it's the wind is coming off from the West Atlantic, it breaks up the clouds, and it's quite a regular thing to see.
You know what I want to do that I haven't really yet? Like, with this camera I have, you can do phenomenal video. And I know you've been doing some work on it too. But my difficulty is actually, deciding not to fish and because obviously with a photograph, you can convince yourself to take a couple of minutes to take the picture, but to do some video is another undertaking entirely. But I'd really like to do that and figure out how to get the same sort of appearance, that kind of cinematic feel with the camera as well. So that's another one to play with.
I played with it the last couple of years, but it's a lot of time just to do maybe a 3-minute or 4-minute video, you're talking a few hours, because just a case of like walking down a path going to the lake, you got to set the camera up, you put it down the end, then you come back and then you go into the frame, and it's like, it's a long-winded process, but I love the editing then, coming together then at the end. And like you said, I love that cinematic style. You give the cinematic bars on top and bottom, so you give that little bit of a wide view, and then do some color grading and music. I've heard people say before, you see with your ears, you can transform something with a bit of music.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, you're right.
But anyway, you were saying about the West. Were you going? I think you said you were going to the West last weekend. Did you go after?
I did, yeah. And I was expecting better things. I got one fish, maybe about 2 pounds, but it was like, it was almost, I had low cloud. It was warm. The only thing that was wrong was the river was low. So I was expecting more things, but again, I put it down to the northerly. Even though it wasn't windy, that's the airflow is coming from that direction. There's just something not right. I mean, it's just very unusual weather this year.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to listen to more and get weekly podcasts and access to over 190 episodes, why not become a Patreon to the channel? Where this week, Keith is putting together a selection of flies as a prize for my Patreons only. To become a Patreon, visit patreon.com/Casting with Kerry Jones or visit my website, castingwithkerryjones.com. I've been noticing the last few months, since I spoke to you last actually, that you've been doing some travelling and you've got another favourite haunt, no? Iceland.
Yeah,
I know. How many times have you been?
That was the 6th time. So we were collecting the hire car and there's a shuttle bus. A girl picked us up from the airport and she said, welcome to Iceland. Have you been before? This, that and the other. And I said, yeah, this is trip number 6. And she says, well, why aren't you moving here? It's like,
I'm on the case, you said.
I could. There's not a chance. My gang would come with me. I'd be going on my own. So I just absolutely love it. It's amazing. And
no, you fish lakes as well as rivers over there, don't you? Am I right in saying that?
There's lots of lake fishing. I mean, my preference is for river fishing, but like I've done Thingvellir or Thingvallavatn, the big lake and that sort of stuff, and then some smaller lakes around the country. It's just such a cool place.
Yeah, I've been twice in the past, many years ago. Yeah, on rivers. And
didn't you fish Chungaflot?
I did, yeah. Yeah, Chungaflot. I had a 14-pound salmon from there actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But we were fishing for sea trout, and along came the salmon, and we spotted him, and I fished under the bridge, and the guide with me then, Oliver, he had his head just over the bridge, guiding my fly. I was upstream, and I had him. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But I fished quite.
It's a big fish for there, big salmon for there.
Yeah, it was a coloured fish. It was a lovely. It's still lovely to catch. And I've had sea trout. I'm trying to think the name of it. Havolsa, is it? There's a couple of rivers we fished. But the sea trout fishing was incredible. Isn't it? It is. The biggest I had was 10, but there was one morning I had to stop because my arm was hurting because you were getting 5-pound fish like peas in a pod. Yeah, and
they're incredibly strong, aren't they?
Yeah. It was. It was a place I'd want to go back to. But it's the lake I'd want to really have a crack at. And is it Lake Myvatten, you said, is it?
Look, my pronunciation of Icelandic names is not great, but Ting Valavatten is the one with the big trout, or the really big ones. It's a huge expanse of water, but there's particular areas on it that are hotspots for fish for various reasons, where they'd have hotter water coming in and small streams and that sort of stuff.
Have you thought, because you know it quite well now, I can imagine you've done it, not only the fishing, the place to stay, and the guides. Have you ever thought of doing guided trips out there?
Yeah, I have considered it, all right. And I may put something into action for next year. What I've been doing up to now is just, bringing 3 friends. So it's a group of 4, and that's been working quite well. But I might do a couple of trips. I'll have to look into it. And there was a couple of people over there saying to me to do it. But look, it's just a matter of working it out. And I once I get into something, I go all in. So I put a lot of time into figuring it out, and having the right people there as well. Like Maris Zatko, you've probably seen him at Jungle in the Trout. That was my 3rd trip with him this year. He's just the fishiest guy you ever come across. He's fantastic.
Yeah,
brilliant. He just loves fish.
Sea trout he catches.
Or both, but the really big dark guys are sea trout, and it was funny. Like I caught a couple of really big ones, like 20, 22 pounds, a couple of years ago, and then you get the odd. When I put them up, we get the odd person going, "Oh, stale fish," but they're not. It's because the black sand bottom, when they come in, they just change color very quickly. It's a different thing over there, but they just seem to be getting bigger and bigger over there, because all that area in the southeast is the sea trout area, big glacial rivers. They run up these glacial rivers then into clear water rivers, and they've implemented catch and release on them. So those big fish will spawn many, many times.
Yeah.
So if you put them back and they just get bigger, that seems to be what's happening.
Is the method you're catching these fish then your articulated lures? The streamers?
Yeah, so this time round, we had kind of the Jungle Flot was actually almost blown. It was rising and dirty, and the fish we got were on the big articulated streamers. Then last year we were getting them on streamers, sunray shadows. There was a few on the nymph. There was a jig head kind of pattern. What else? There was a good few methods.
Right.
And just swinging flies. But a black streamer, you can't go wrong with them, really.
Yeah. So you'd fish a single-hander rod? I fish the single-hander. Now, there's a couple of spots where you would benefit with a double-hander. Like TC was with me. He was using a 12-foot rod, and that was working for him. Yeah.
But I just like to fish a single-hander and strip the fly, work the fly. Because like most of the time, if you do that with a double-hander rod, trying to get the line back out, then when you've stripped it in close to your feet, it makes it
I know
slower, where you can get it back out with the single-handed rod fairly quick.
Yeah. I've been looking at your articulated lures, the streamer patterns, and some of them have got like cone heads to give them more action, I guess. I don't know if they're cone heads, but it looks like there's weight on them. Something I have found, and I haven't seen them on your flies, is something which I'd love to actually give it a go, is I've been fishing only the last 2 years or so, especially back end of the year. I get a lot of success with snakes, right?
Yeah.
Now, but with snakes with booby eyes. Like yesterday, for instance, I went fishing as an example, and I was only fishing like 10 foot of water maybe. There was a weed bed there, and I was fishing just an intermediate with one of these snakes. And then, so it was fishing sort of mid-water then, instead of just fishing the other way where you got a floating line and pulling it down. You weren't getting caught. But the action is, it's deadly on a snake, really.
Yeah.
But after saying that, right, the hookups are really poor with snakes. I just can't get... For every 6 fish you hook, 4 will come off. They just don't stay on. But I thought to myself, it'd be good to have these articulated streamers. I would try some with booby eyes.
Yeah.
You have?
Sorry, no. Would I try them? Yeah, I would. But I'll do you up a couple to try. I like what I do, which is it wouldn't have the same buoyancy as the booby eyes, but I'd put deer hair on the front, and the effect of the deer hair is that it pushes water and makes noise. So I guess part of the reason that the snake with the booby eyes works is that that it's displacing water. It's making noise in the water as well.
Yeah.
But there's a guy fly fishing the Ozarks. His name escapes me at the moment, and he's a great guy. But he, what he did instead of the deer hair was that he sliced up some foam, and put the foam onto the head and trimmed it into a kind of a similar shape to the deer hair. It's like using
the jumbo
foam in the same fashion as a muddler head, and that's very effective too. I do think in still water, something with a slimmer profile like your snake is more effective than a bulky fish shape. I think slimming that down in still water makes a big difference to success.
And as well, I guess it's the hook knot you put on to tie the fly. I know you fish, it's almost like, I don't know what the knot's called, it's like a Rapala hook knot, isn't it? So there's more movement. So, but it's definitely something.
Yeah, you get a bit more movement. The hookups with the hook in the back of the snake, my belief is, and I've seen it many times, that the fish tend to the better fish, the good ones, tend to hit the head of the fly rather than the tail. Now, sometimes when they're juiced up, they suck the whole lot in. With the articulated fly, there'd be 2 hooks in them, but for a larger proportion at the time, they're on the front hook. So it would be worth trying that fly with the front hook rather than the back hook.
Yeah.
And just leave the zonker free swing in the back.
Yeah. Well, after speaking with you last time, I was inspired to try and tie some of these articulated lures, but they were smaller ones, because you kindly sent me a selection, 4, I think it was, or the larger ones. And I've had pike on them, actually, and I had a small trout, believe it or not, almost as big as the fly. But but I tied them smaller, sort of, I don't know, maybe 2 inches, something like that. But that articulated movement, there's a lake I used to fish often then. I didn't join it this year. It's Östervelta, and it's only a small trout in there. If you got a 1.5 pound trout, that's a good trout. Usually they're 12 ounces. And I thought, let's give it a try. And do you know what? I had one 2.5 from it. And
brilliant.
I tried everything. I'm sure there's bigger ones in there as well. But it goes to show that movement has got something distinctly different to your normal flies.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah. Because there's lots of ways to go to build bigger flies, but that jointed hook, if the fly is designed well, that you, as you said, you've got perhaps some weight on the front to get that up and down serpentine action, or you've got some sort of a bulbous head like a deer hair head or a wool head in order to, resist the water, so that when you pull, it'll stop quickly and the back kicks. So there's loads of things to play with there, but I'm such a huge fan of an articulated fly. Even, everybody loves a woolly bugger. It's a great fly, but even I like to fish flies that size, but with an articulation in them, because you can get a nice action from that too, even with a smaller fly.
Yeah. Well, you've got your selection, I'll mention now, on your website. It's Impact Flyfishing, it is, isn't it?
So the website is streamerfishing.com. We're lucky to get that one.
Right. But the brand is called Impact Flyfishing, isn't it?
But brand is called Impact Flyfishing, yeah.
So if anybody's interested in getting a look at your flies and from ordering the flies, to have a look on the website. And I also want to thank you as well for offering a box of streamers as a prize for my Patreons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll get that organised.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you got any more goals?
My goal has been to get a double figure river trout in Ireland. So, I got them elsewhere, but to get one in Ireland would be the thing. And edging ever closer. And I guess it could have happened on the dry fly, as I say, this year, but then it'd be funny, wouldn't it? Because, I put so much time into the streamer stuff and targeting big fish with the streamer, and then he comes along with the dry fly. But I think it's probably just an approach to going after big fish, in that I'm just obsessed with them. I'm obsessed with targeting bigger fish. It's what gets me out fishing. So dry fly or streamer, be good.
I get that. I see where you're coming from, because seeing a photograph of a big fish is something, but when you actually see a fish on the bank or in your hands live of like £10 plus, it's like, whoa. Pictures don't do it justice, does it? No,
it never gets old for me. I just think they're the most magnificent looking creatures, particularly a cockfish with a hook jaw.
Yeah.
There's just something amazing about them.
I don't get too many big cockfish browns.
Yeah.
Very few and far between. But what I do like is, like most of the ones I get when I'm on the Corrib, is different areas. I know almost what the colour and the look is going to be like when I hook them before they come in a boat. Now and again you're surprised, you get like some extremely yellow, which I love that. You don't get too many bright yellow ones. They're almost like a coppery bronzy, some of the big trout. But it's nice sometimes you get that bright yellow one. It's like a 2-pounder, which is like being blown 5 times the size.
There's quite a number of different looking Ferex trout in the Corrib, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Many of them are silver.
Quite distinctive, differences between them.
It depends.
And how do you think it's holding up, the Ferex fishing in Corrib? Is it doing okay?
Oh yeah, there's plenty there. I keep having a few. Right now, at the moment, there's more fish in the 5 to 10 pound range on Corrib than I've ever experienced.
Really?
Yeah. And people getting them on the fly quite regular now as well. You know? Especially the 5 pound size. Especially down the lake. What I find, it's if you split it into different areas, you've got the top end of the lake, you can say, the top half is where the big lads, the big fish are, the high teens and above. It's weird because up that top, Cornamona and Duras and that, that's where the big ones live. But the trout generally are averaging a lot smaller, 1.5 pounds you can see even. But down the bottom then,
your kind of average guy is much the normal kind of...
Yeah, the 5 pounds sort of is quite common. 4 to 6 pounds is quite common right down the bottom. But the big fish aren't down there. It's strange, isn't it? There's the odd one, but if you want to target them, it's, above Inchigill, that's the area really, in the deep water.
Yeah.
But like I said, the colours do change. And the further they're out into the islands, out of the deeper water, the more silver I find,
Right. Yeah.
So
they're amazing the way they can change their colours according to the environment.
Will you get out again now, maybe before the end of the season? Because it's running away with us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's running away. I will. I'll get out at the weekend and I'll get out. I've got a couple of places that don't close till the 12th of October. I'm kind of at this stage, I came back from Iceland. That was such an unbelievable trip. It really worked out in all the places, and then came back to kind of very slow fishing here. And I've had a few nice fish and a few nice days out, but this part of me is gone. It'd be nice to just park it now and then start building the hope for next season, that things would be a bit more normal. I mean, weather-wise, I know there's Irish weather is very changeable, but there was something very different about this year.
It was a weird one. I'm like you, I can't complain about the season, but it's been a disjointed one.
Disjointed and challenging, and just smaller windows of opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
Always watching all of these different factors like a hawk. Sometimes it might be better just to, forget about it and go fishing regardless. But, when you're at it for a long time, because fishing to me is all of these factors lining up, coming together. When some of them are missing, it gets harder to go out with confidence, with the absolute confidence. Yeah. So.
But if you wait for the perfect day, it'll never happen. And there's days
that's absolutely
like shitty days, you can say. Well, you wouldn't normally go out. Those can be the days which are the memorable ones. So just get out there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat again, and thanks again for joining me for another episode. And hopefully next year Kerry. We'll definitely try and plan a day together, maybe on Kylemore.
Yeah, no, we'll have to do that. I'd love to do that. I'd love you to see it happen, because they're, as I say, they're willing and they're quite aggressive. To get them on the fly rod pulling a streamer is really good fun.
Well, thanks again. I've thoroughly enjoyed the chat, Keith. And
cheers, lovely to talk to you, Ceri. Cheers, Ceri. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, bye.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want to listen to more, please consider becoming a Patreon, where you'll get weekly podcasts and access to over 190 episodes, behind-the-scenes photography to go with each episode, plus other exclusive content and prizes. To become a Patreon, visit patreon.com/Casting with Ceri Jones, or you can find the link on my website, castingwithcerijones.com. That's all for now. Tight lines, and may they always be up in the wave.
Oh, the bit I left out about it was that there was one fucker of a swan, the male swan. You see, this seemed to be an argument between two families of swans, and So the lone male swan, he got left behind, and he actually even followed me all the way down the river on the way out. It was like a kick in the bollocks. But then, so 2 weeks later, there was a drop of water, and I decided I'd try for it last try for a springer, and I got the springer. Really cool fish, maybe 9 pounds, lovely shaped fish. Nice. And I was setting up, as I was describing to you, setting up on my own, and all of a sudden there's a swan in the frame. If you look, I think I put the picture up on Instagram or whatever, but the fucking swan stayed in the frame like for about 9 shots of this salmon. You know, he was just sitting behind me. I was like, Jesus Christ, what's going on with the swans now? They're fuckers. They're a pain in the arse. But that's fishing, isn't it?